So the Basilica of St. John Lateran is one of the four major basilicas in Rome. It is the Pope's cathedral. And the reason for that is that way back in 324 AD, Christianity was just allowed to flourish in Rome. And it needed a church for the Pope, for the Bishop of Rome. And St. John, the Lateran family, donated the property for it, and so it became known as St. John Lateran. And since that time, in 324, that church has been the Church of the Holy Father. A lot of people think it's St. Peter's Basilica. No, he says Mass there a lot, and he lives real close by. But his basilica is St. John Lateran. Okay. By the way, your pastor, Father Tom, I'm sure has visited this church probably multiple times by now. This feast, though, gives us the opportunity to look at why churches, Catholic churches, are unique and special houses of God. For us, this space and every Catholic church really matters. I remember as a boy when I tried to go out when my dad was doing errands or whatever, and in 1953 Plymouth, and we'd ride by a little Polish Catholic church. You know what he would do and ask me to do? Bless myself. Do you remember that, some of you? That's a custom that I think has gone by the wayside. Think about bringing it back. When you pass by a Catholic church, go ahead and bless yourself as a reminder that that is the house of God. We're going to look at a couple of images of the church that help us to understand why this space in every Catholic church is important. First of all, the church is a temple. For the ancient Jewish people, the temple was the center. It was it. And that's why Jesus got so upset when all the money changers and people selling things inside the temple were doing that, because it had turned from a house of prayer to a place of business and worship. But it was the center, and it held in the Holy of Holies, the most holy spot within the temple, the Ark of the Covenant. Remember the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the movie? That big box that contained the 2 tablets of the 10 Commandments. Well, that was held in the Holy of Holies, in which the high priest, one time during the year, would crawl into the Holy of Holies and whisper the name of God. That's how sacred and how holy it was for the ancient Jews. Well, guess what? We have a Holy of Holies too. And it's right there. Because in that tabernacle is God. Sometimes we forget that. Sometimes the God who created the stars, the universe, this beautiful land that we live in, is right there. Every time, in every Catholic church, where you see that red votive lamp, you know the presence of God is there. We also have altars, just like the temple did. They would sacrifice animals. We, however, bloodlessly remember the sacrifice of Jesus on this altar every time we say Mass. Now here's another image of why our churches are so important. The church is, are you ready? Really like Noah's Ark. During a time of great unrest back then, when the world was a mess and God had said, I've had it with you guys, I'm going to send a rescue mission. And that's why Noah built the ark and all the critters went inside there. And they survived the crisis. Today in our world, God knows there's a lot of beautiful things, but you know what? Just look at our government. There's all kinds of crises out there and all forms of evil that we face on a regular basis. The church, all of us here, we ride it out here. We ride it out with like-minded people who believe the very same things. We are like the inhabitants of that Noah's Ark. And just like when the ark finally hit land and the doors were open and everyone that went out into the light. Well, guess what? You, when these doors are open, take the light out. Do you ever notice at the start of Mass, the lector or the deacon or the priest will bring in the book of the Gospels, which I read from this morning? Do you ever notice that no one ever takes the book of the Gospel out after Mass? Why is that? Why don't we take the book of the Gospels out? Because you do. You take the Word of God out to the rest of the world that needs to hear it. The main aisle of every church is called the nave, from the Latin word navis, which means ship. Your church is the ship that navigates the waters of this crazy world to get us through. So here at St. Anne's, you are actively preparing to build a new church. When I come by to say Mass for you, I go back and look at the beautiful design that's on the back wall over there. That structure will be a wonderful house of God, a place where the Word of God and the sacrifice of Jesus will be remembered for generations to come. And those who pray there down the road, as I'm sure Father Tom prayed while he was at St. John's, the Lateran Basilica in Rome, will remember you and the sacrifices you have made to create this new house of God.